Welcome to Unleashing Happiness with Cecilia Hendricks, the podcast where we'll share ways to change your mindset, change your habits, and change your life. And welcome back to Unleashing Happiness. I'm pretty excited about this episode today, but I'm also going to guess that anybody who listens to me on a weekly basis is not really surprised to hear me say that, because I say that I'm excited all the time. But I would rather be excited than not excited. And today there was something really cool that happened this week. So I started reading the book Atomic Habits. I had picked up this book a few years ago. It's been sitting honestly on my shelf for a while, not being read. And after I was really encouraged and read the book, The Power of Habit, that my daughter highly recommended, and I also highly recommend, I absolutely loved that book, I decided I should go ahead and also read Atomic Habits. Like, I have it. I want to have more information about this. And I also am teaching a lot about habits and identity and the way that you view yourself and beliefs, etc., through my content. And I'm kind of always looking for information to show that I'm on the right track. So when I'm doing my podcast, I think I've shared before, I'm not a therapist. I don't have a degree in this. I'm not a neuroscientist. I just started to look for ways for myself to improve my life. And when I was doing that, I found these steps because I had a lot of trial and error. And I found these steps that really helped me. And I was very excited about them. And so when I started to put the steps together, I realized that I was able to pair my personal spirituality, learnings, and beliefs with science-based information that's out there, and steps to change my habits, look at my identity, the beliefs that I have, and make really positive changes in my life that then started to reflect better things back to me in life. So while for a law of attraction or law of assumption type deal, I had some really interesting things happen to me when I was using techniques that are around that, or, really starting to focus on a belief or something that I wanted to have happen, a result. I was still struggling in some other areas. And one of those areas was just feeling good. I would get caught up in kind of this cycle of, this isn't happening. It's not happening fast enough. I'm not sure what's going on, etc. And I think a lot of people fall into that. When I was in the Reddit community, which I was for many years, many years for me, which is about 2-3. When I was in that community, I found that a lot of people had the same thing. Like, hey, I'm doing all this stuff that I'm supposed to, and that you guys say is supposed to work, and I'm being positive, and I think that I'm deserving, and I tell myself how wonderful I am every day, but this isn't working for me, and my life isn't getting better. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse. And I would hear this from people, and I was like, there's got to be another answer to this. I truly believe you get what you believe in life. What you see yourself, the identity that you have for yourself, is what is reflected back to you. The unfortunate part, though, is that it comes from your subconscious. If you're having beliefs of, that you're not good enough, or that you'll never make that money, or you're unable to perceive that even something would be ever available to you because of the state of mind that you're currently in, you're just going to continue a cycle that's really frustrating. So I started taking smaller habit changes to just change the way that I felt. And it all started from within, which can be such a frustrating thing to hear if somebody then doesn't explain to you, how in the world do you do that? This isn't making sense to me. But so when you start to take these real life practical tips into your spirituality and what you're focusing on and the state of being that you're going to be, your concept of self, whichever phrase or term that you want to use, you start to see these changes. And today I want to talk a lot about that. So I want to talk about your identity, small wins, and your perceptions. And then I also have some practical life changes that you can add to your day. It's 3 of them. Just kind of add to the day, make your day a little bit better. And every day, as you get a little bit better, you'll start to see the world reflecting better back to you. I want to begin by reading part of Neville Goddard's Your Faith is Your Fortune. It's from chapter 3, which is called The Principle of Truth. The nature of manifestation is determined by the state of consciousness in which I dwell. I am always drawing into my world that which I am conscious of being. If you are dissatisfied with your present expression of life, then you must be born again. Rebirth is the dropping of that level with which you are dissatisfied and rising to that level of consciousness which you desire to express and possess. Man cannot see how it would be possible to express that which he desires to be by so simple a law as acquiring the consciousness of the thing desired. The reason for this lack of faith on the part of man is that he looks at the desired state through the consciousness of his present limitations. Therefore, he naturally sees it as impossible of accomplishment. One of the first things man must realize is that it is impossible, in dealing with the spiritual law of consciousness, to put new wine into old bottles or new patches on old garments. That is, you cannot take any part of the present consciousness into the new state. So I wanted to kind of pick at that just a little bit, and not pick at it, but explain some of my thoughts on this a little bit. And then I've got a piece that I want to read from Atomic Habits. What it's being said here is that your identity, the state that you're in, allows for the perceptions that you are able to even see in life. I believe on this podcast, I've talked about the experiment that was done where they took 2 groups of people and they placed them in with some freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. The first group, they told, hey, could you please not eat these cookies? We're doing a study and, we want to see kind of how long people can refrain and how it works for them. So if you could really please just not eat the cookies, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Leave the room with the chocolate chip cookies. I think if I recall correctly, barely anybody ate a cookie or nobody did. I'm not sure if that's not really the point, but so they were very nice and explained like, hey, please don't do that. It would be really great. So these people didn't eat the cookie. They left it. Then the second group, they were much more curt. They weren't rude, but definitely said, hey, don't eat these cookies, and left the room. That group was much more dissatisfied. The first group had kind of found themselves feeling like, okay, we know why we're doing this. We're being spoken to nicely. We get it. We can just, leave those cookies alone. The second group's like, ugh, whatever. This is so annoying. I don't like that I have to be here and I have to smell these dang cookies. I don't get to eat it, whatever. And they're annoyed. So then they took the participants and they gave them a newspaper, and the newspaper was filled with images. And they asked each participant, please count the images and tell us how many images are in this newspaper. The folks that were in the first group that were spoken to more nicely and given a little bit more information found it much quicker, like figured out that there was 42 or whatever the answer was, 42 images in this paper. The reason being was because on the first or second page of the paper, there was a sentence that said, you can stop counting. There's 42 images in this paper. The interesting part is the ones that were in a frustrated state of mind because of the way they had been talked to about the cookies and not eating them, never even saw that sentence. It was definitely available to them the same way as it was to the others, but the others were in a different state of mind, and they were able to perceive this sentence that told them how they could stop. This to me is remarkable because what it says is that you will actually not be able to perceive the opportunities or some things that are directly in front of you because of your state. Now, this is not just necessarily a negative thing. This could also be a positive. So if I am in this state where I believe that I am wealthy and money is always coming into me and I don't have to be concerned about money, I don't even perceive a lack of not being able to have the dinner that I want or seeing something that's like directly in front of my face. Whereas on the other side, if I perceive myself as always getting the crappy end of the stick and nothing ever goes my way, I'm always being crapped on, that's actually what I see. So when these other opportunities may be reflected in my life and they're right in front of my face, I would be unable to perceive those opportunities because it's like I have blinders on. To me, my current identity, my current state, my current concept of self, whichever word, phrase you want to use for it, is actually unable to recognize the opportunity that may be directly in front of me. So that may lead to the question of, okay, if I'm not even able to perceive it because I found myself in a state, but I want to change this state, what the heck do I do? How do I get out of this? And the nice thing is that there are ways to get out of it. Our brains are constantly learning. We are learning from our environment. We're learning from our emotional reactions. We're able to rewire the way that we work. And we do that by changing our habits. And this all ties back to not only what spiritual teachers like Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, all of them teach you is how to rewire your brain, just to do it in more of like a spiritual, or, some folks call it a woo-woo kind of way. But then you can pair it with things that are like habit changes and working with the neurology that we're just kind of built in the way that our brains work and the way that we learn. Our minds want to be efficient. And the more that we're able to create a habit that we don't have to think about, the more efficient our brain can be. And so the more that you return to something, the more that you continue something, the more that you are framing that as your identity. A rather embarrassing thing to share is that I used to be a smoker. It honestly feels like a completely different person in lifetime. Like, it's weird for me to say that now. I quit over 15 years ago. I could not even imagine smoking a cigarette now. But for many years, my identity was in being a smoker. Because if somebody asked me, hey, do you want a cigarette or do you smoke? Which, oh gosh, it's like making my stomach hurt to even think about it now. My identity was framed that that's something that I did. That was a habit that I had. There was some sort of reward within the nicotine and kind of what I got that would continue this routine that I had of smoking cigarettes. Since I quit though, I don't continue to tell people, no, I'm quitting smoking. No, I am not a smoker. I do not smoke. So if somebody were to offer me a cigarette, the thought of even accepting that would not even cross my mind. As a matter of fact, to share this story, I often forget that that was even part of my identity because I have shifted that habit so much that I no longer identify with that. I no longer am within that state. I don't see myself that way. And so I am no longer a smoker. And you can do this with anything. If you struggle to get up in the morning, you can make yourself a morning person. You can stay up later. You can become more organized. You can become someone who is focused on their fitness and their health by making this part of your identity. So when you look at teachers such as like Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, they're telling you, you need to be the person that you want to be. And sometimes when I was first learning about this and working on the person that I am and my identity, I just wanted to yell, what does that mean? I'm trying to be that person, but I don't know what that actually means. So I recommend 2 questions to kind of step back. Well, I'm sorry, actually, I'm going to add a 3rd question, but the first 2 start with you to be able to identify what you want to do. So what result do you want? If you were to look and say, okay, this is the result that I want. Either I want more love in my life. I want to feel desired. I want to be more organized. I want my house to be tidy. I want to be successful at work. I want to be a vice president. I want to open my own business. What is the result that you want? And stop and kind of really think about that, because you need to become clear on what it is that you want. That is the first step. I've talked about this. I think it was my second podcast episode. You need to decide what it is that you want. The second question to me is the fun one. Although it's nice to think about what result that I want. This one I really love because you can really dig in. What type of person would have that? What would the life of someone who had the result that you wanted look like? What type of person would that be? If you want to have a tidy home, that would be someone who is organized and had energy. That's what I see. Because for me, if I don't have a tidy home, it's normally because I'm exhausted and I'm not focusing on my health and being able to have the energy to kind of keep up with my day-to-day life and everything that I have going on and come home and keep a clean home, which is actually really important to me in my identity. I want people to be able to stop by and my house to look, of course, like we live in it, but also not like it's a disaster. And I have had times in the past where I did not identify with that. And instead I identified as very messy and usually had a messy home. And I have kind of found for myself and with others that a messy home really equals a disorganized life. So that was something that I wanted to change. And I had to ask myself, well, what type of person would have a clean and organized home? And you can kind of start to identify what that person looks like. And maybe if you're struggling, don't see it as yourself to start. Think about somebody that you know, that you admire, who's, living maybe that part of what you would like to embody. And think about what their life looks like. What kind of habits do you see that they have? How do they spend their mornings? What are they doing? How often are they scrolling on their phone? And you may not know, but you can also imagine, right? Like if you think of somebody who's like highly successful, and if that's what you want is success in business, and you think of somebody who's crazy successful, what do you see them spending their day doing? Is it sitting and scrolling YouTube for hours? Is it, watching TV and Netflix for 8 hours a day? What is it that they're doing? Are they reading books? Are they constantly learning? Are they, more into fitness? What is it? And start to look, okay, what type of person would have the result that I want? Now, here is kind of the also fun part, that third question that I told you we'll add in here. Those first two say, this is the person that I want to be. This is the result that I want. This is the person that I want to become that has that result so that I can live the life that I want to live. So then the third one is, what's one small thing you can do right now or today to become that person? If you're looking at you want to be in better shape, you want to have a long, healthy life, spend time with your kids, be able to hike the top of the mountain, be able to bike ride for 30 miles, whatever it is of that result that you want, even if it's look hot in a bikini, whatever it is that your result is, do not let anybody shame you for the result that you're looking for. That is for you and you only. What's one small thing you could do today to become that person? Is it taking a morning walk? Is it signing up for a workout class at your local gym? Is it doing something at home? There's free YouTube videos for fitness. Is it taking a look at the way that you're eating and changing your eating habits for better energy and to fuel your body with whole foods that make you feel good? Is it getting more sleep? Because sleep is a cornerstone to feeling better. Our bodies need sleep, and the better sleep that you can get, the more healthy and amazing and energized you're going to feel. I will definitely talk about that some in future episodes because I do find it so important, but I will touch on the fact today that sleep is key. So if you're looking to add health or fitness to your life, please do not ignore that your sleep is really, really important to that. So there's those three questions for you. What result do you want? Okay. What type of person would have that result that I want? And what is one thing? It can be tiny. One thing that you can do today, right now, to become that person. So take a look at the daily habits that you have. And this is just for you. You don't need to feel ashamed. but be really honest with yourself about your habits. I often have to catch myself still. This is a habit that I'm really working on, to not mindlessly scroll my phone. I'm not sure exactly why this habit has been so difficult for me, but it has. And so I often have to be really honest with myself about, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And is this aligned with the person that you want to be? Because if I have decided, okay, this is the result that I want, this is the type of person that would have that, I can ask myself throughout the day, what would a person who had X do? So in any moment in time, if I say, what would a person who had X do? Then I can do that, because that's the way that I want to identify. And the more that I tell my brain, look, we're doing this, we're making this choice, the more that my brain starts to say, oh, this is actually who we are. This is how we identify. These are our habits. This is our state. This is our concept of self. So we're going to follow that path instead of kind of going back to these old habits. And it will take a while. You're going to have to catch yourself, and don't beat yourself up. Start with something small. So I brought up a tidy home earlier. What is something that you could do today to be more organized and keep a tidy home? One of the ones I'll talk about later is making your bed every morning. It is a very easy win to kind of get you started. What I'm about to read now is actually from Atomic Habits. As I stated earlier, I started reading this book. I'm absolutely loving it already. I'm only a few pages in, I think like 50 pages in, but already loving it. So do expect to hear me talk about it more. But I wanted to read a piece that really stood out to me that I feel connects back to what Neville Goddard was saying about how your concept of yourself is what allows you to perceive certain things, and the way that you can start to work with your brain to be able to perceive different opportunities that are available to you that are more aligned with the person that you want to be. The more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with that behavior. So what this is saying, I love that quote, is that the more often you return to it, the more that your brain is saying, yes, that's who I am. This is the way that I'm going to be. So going back to the book, your identity is literally your repeated beingness. Whatever your identity is right now, you only believe it because you have proof of it. If you go to church every Sunday for 20 years, you have evidence that you're religious. If you study biology for 1 hour every night, you have evidence that you are studious. If you go to the gym, even when it's snowing, you have evidence that you are committed to fitness. The more evidence you have for a belief, the more strongly you will believe it. So this comes back to, okay, so we've got Neville saying, hey, you're only going to be able to perceive what you're conscious of. That's going to be based on your state of mind. Your state of mind is your identity, your concept of self, self-concept. Like I said, all of those are the same phrase, just used differently, but those are your beliefs, your thoughts that you're going to continue, where you dwell. That's another kind of thing that Neville talks about, is where you're dwelling. Your state is where you dwell. It's what you repeatedly go back to, and you repeatedly go back to whatever habits you have created. So then what James Clear is saying in his book is, hey, the more evidence you have of proof, the more that this becomes your identity. You're telling your brain, see, I told you, there it is. And this is where I think people get caught up in a cycle, which gets frustrating. And when folks are using affirmations that they don't believe, I think this is why it can take some time. I firmly believe that affirmations work. I just think they're a slow way of getting somewhere most of the time. So if I continually tell myself I'm the luckiest person out there, but I'm constantly paying attention to the unlucky things that happen to me, I'm actually giving my focus and attention to these unlucky things, and that's what I'll continue to experience. My perception, my state, is only allowing me to still see the unlucky. Now I can continue to just say, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky. And eventually what'll happen is I'll start to shift to notice the things that make me lucky and that confirm that to myself. But you can bypass all of that. And you can bypass it by consciously starting to say, okay, here's the type of person that I want to be. Here are the ways or the things that would happen to this type of person. Like when James Clear says that if you go to church every Sunday for 20 years, you have confirmed to yourself that you are religious. If you get up every morning and make your bed first thing in the morning, you are confirming to yourself every day that you show up that you are an organized and tidy person. And I'll tell you what, this has a domino effect. Getting up, making your bed, seeing that together makes you want to have the rest of your room be together. When the rest of your room looks nice, you want to make sure the bathroom that's attached looks nice. When the bathroom's attached, you want to make sure your closet looks nice. And it just kind of domino effects. But you end up having a ton of energy because you feel really good about the things that you're doing. So please do not put down or not consider how momentous and huge small changes can be. Something very tiny. Getting up in the morning and taking a walk for 15, 20 minutes. You're outside, you're getting the morning light, you're doing something healthy for yourself, you're adding movement, and that's going to have a domino effect in your life. You'll start to see it where it's like, oh, wait a minute, I maybe don't want to, eat 3 donuts for breakfast anymore because I just took this walk and I'm feeling really good. And I kind of would prefer to have yogurt and blueberries. And I'm not someone who believes that you have to eat a certain way. I really don't. If I want to have cake or an ice cream, I'm going to have cake or an ice cream and I'm going to enjoy it. I do not worry about making sure that I get the smallest, tiniest little slice with barely any icing because dang it, that stuff is good. And sometimes I want to celebrate and enjoy it. But I also recognize that I feel better when I eat better. And so I want to feel the best way that I can feel, which means sometimes I'm going to have the cake, but the majority of the time I'm going to have the yogurt and blueberries or the whole foods of kind of what I can get my hands on because that makes me feel better. That's part of my identity. You have to choose your identity. But the more that you start to confirm this to yourself, the more that suddenly it becomes a habit. This is who you are. It's the same way of me saying that I, was a smoker years ago. That was part of who I was. It was ingrained in my identity. Me not being a smoker now, I don't consider myself a previous smoker. Somebody asked me, I don't say, oh, I quit so many years ago. Somebody asked me if I want a cigarette or if I smoke. I say, no, I am not a smoker because that is not the way that I identify. And you can do this in many ways through your life. And then the other thing to do, like back to the lucky example, is start to call out the small wins. So if I, let's say, get a really great parking spot at the grocery store and it's like raining outside and I really want the good parking spot, then I will say, oh, of course I got the good parking spot. I always do because I'm so lucky. If I want to see myself as fashionable and a good dresser, and then somebody one day compliments my outfit, well, of course they complimented my outfit. I'm so stylish. I put together these like really amazing outfits. It can be about being funny. If you want to be a reader, start reading every day. If you want to be a writer, write something every day. You have the ability to make the choice that you want to every single day to confirm the identity that you're trying to come up with or that you're trying to embody. And that's why I say you should ask yourself throughout the day, what would a person who had X do? One great example is like, let's say a marriage or a great relationship. If you're struggling right now in that area, ask yourself, okay, what result do I want? I want a really loving, committed, and loyal marriage. What type of person would have that? Okay, it would be somebody who was honest and forthright and loved and also gives love, right? Okay, so that's the person. That's how I want to become. And so what's one small thing that I can do to become that person? It doesn't matter if you're single or already in a relationship. You can ask yourself, what would a person who had a great marriage do? If I'm already in a relationship, well, that might be that I'm going to look at checking in with my spouse today, or I'm going to compliment my partner, or I am going to set up a surprise date night because that's something that I think is special and would be nice for us. If you're not within a relationship, well, what's something that you could do? If you want to go meet somebody, Could you maybe join a group and get out and actually go meet somebody? That would probably be a good start. And so you have to really identify what would that mean in your head. And this all ties into what everybody is teaching. You need to confirm to yourself that you are the person that you want to be. And you do that every day with the habits that you choose. So when you choose to wake up in the morning and scroll your phone for 2 hours, or wake up so late that you're rushed trying to get to work and you're almost late and you're frazzled and you're in a crappy mood and it just kind of continues through your day, you're confirming with those habits that that is the person that you are. And the more that you do that and the more that you pay attention to it, the more you're actually giving thanks to it. So that ties it back then to law of attraction and law of assumption. The more I focus on it, the more I'm saying, man, thank you. This is how I want to live. This is how I would like my life to go. I'm going to focus so much on this. And that is actually giving gratitude. I think a lot of time people think gratitude is like this massive feeling that you have to like really build up. And this is kind of what I've heard where it's like, well, I like force myself to be so overjoyed in gratitude, and full of gratitude for XYZ, but then it never comes into my life. Well, yeah, because you're not actually grateful for that. You're faking that. What you're grateful for is what you continue to pay attention to. So it's like what Neville said, you have to take your attention away from whatever the problem is, whatever you're not enjoying, whatever state and identity you don't like, and turn it to what you do like. And it's a very simple process. And once you get it, you'll be like, holy cow, I get it. Oh my gosh, she knew what she was talking about. And now it's all kind of clicking together. And this is freaking amazing. And it'll feel absolutely amazing because the shift is saying, okay, I'm going to make small changes, recognize those, and give myself small wins for XYZ to confirm to myself that this is what's happening and this is the person that I am. So don't forget those 3 questions. And then don't forget to ask yourself through the day, what would a person who had X do? At the beginning of the episode, I did say that I would give you some practical life changes that will kind of help you get kicked off on the right foot. I share these, I think I've done it the past couple of podcast episodes. They're definitely on my Instagram as well, and then also on my YouTube channel. But I'm going to kind of keep giving small things that you can do. Definitely take what resonates with you. So if one, you're like, that does not work for me, I am not doing that, that's not the person that I want to be, not going to be offended, by all means, find what works for you. That's why I recommend the list of joys. When you write out a list of joys and then add those to your day, you're shifting your focus to things that you enjoy. You're raising your vibration. You're becoming more grateful for the life that you lead. And it just kind of helps pick you up out of a funk, really. So the first one that I always recommend is read daily. Reading is one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself. And I don't care if it's fiction, self-help, nonfiction, whatever it is, read and get into this habit of becoming a reader. The amount of information that is available to us through books is outstanding. And it's amazing to really step into the information that's provided from these authors. I am usually always reading one type of self-help book, like right now it's Atomic Habits. And then also I go back to Neville Goddard books and lectures pretty much on a daily basis to read those. But then I also really enjoy reading fiction. I enjoy reading that kind of stuff. That's kind of my downtime. And when I was a child, I read all the time. Like I couldn't get enough. I read constantly. And I've talked about part of why I started this is because I felt like I had lost my own identity. I wanted to be a better partner, a better spouse, a better friend, but I was so lost in what that actually meant because I wasn't fulfilling my own needs and my own desires and things for myself first. And that was really difficult as a mother to understand. But reading is one of those things that I wanted to go back to because I do enjoy it so much. And I do really love to read. And you can get some of the greatest information out of books. Like the things that I've learned from some of the authors that I read is just outstanding. And it gives you this connection and like availability from the author that you can't get otherwise, right? Like I'm likely not going to meet James Clear, or at least not anytime soon, but I can get into his mind by reading his book. And he's got this really great information and this amazing story to share. And I can get part of that. I can have that. The same with like somebody like Tony Robbins or, Mel Robbins. There's people out there that have great information. And even if they pass on, like Neville Goddard, it still lives on and you can learn from them. So definitely add reading daily to your day. It can be 1 page to start, like just get started, read daily. The other one that I talked about earlier is make your bed. The making of your bed has actually been shown to be kind of this cornerstone habit, keystone habit, I guess is what it's called in Power of Habit. But this keystone habit that just starts a domino effect into other habits. So make your bed. Get up, make your bed. If you have a spouse, my spouse sleeps later than I do. So everybody knows now it's 6:45 in the morning. I have been up for almost 3 hours. This is just how I am. And I wake up like so full of energy. I'm kind of like a little Energizer bunny. And I'm sure on some level I'm rather annoying in the morning because my spouse doesn't usually wake up until quite a few hours after me. But I had to clarify that I'm up before 4 a.m. Like I beat the sun and the birds up most days. So it doesn't sound like he sleeps until noon, but he'll get up between like 8 and 9. And so I don't make the bed right away because he's still in it. So I wait until he's up and then I go in and I make the bed. Some days he beats me to it and makes the bed right when he wakes up. But I like to have the bed made. It just makes me feel better. When I walk into my bedroom, I just kind of feel like things are better together. And then when I get into bed, my sheets like aren't all clumpy at the bottom because I, especially in the summer, kind of sleep a little crazy. So I like the bed made. So get up, make your bed. The third one is wake up early. Early for you. If you're a shift worker and you work overnight, this early for you is just making sure that you're waking up with time for yourself in the morning. You are more likely to get things done in your morning. And like I said, if you're a shift worker, that could be a different morning, quote unquote, than mine. But you get more done because that's time for you. And getting up and rushing out the door, or if you work from home, getting up and like literally jumping on a call within 5 minutes of being awake is not a great start to your day. So start to build the habit of waking up early. I recommend starting with just 15 minutes earlier than you usually get up. And then we'll start to talk too about the way that you can maybe find some ways to get better sleep. And then that way you're not struggling to get up. But definitely wake up earlier than what you are so that you have time to start building a morning routine that gets you off on the right foot. And by getting you off on the right foot, that means build a routine that is within alignment of the person that you want to become. So it goes right back to those questions. What result do I want? What type of person would get that result? What's a small thing that I can do to become that person? And then throughout the day, what would blank person do in this situation? And the more that you ask yourself, the more you'll start to identify, oh, this person would do X and I did X, so I'm becoming that person. We're just going to keep confirming to our brains, yes, this is who I am. This is a small win that I have for today to prove this is the type of person I am. This is how I identify. This is who I am and who I'm going to be. I hope that you found value in today, and I will be back next week. Hey y'all, thanks again for joining me today. I absolutely love doing this podcast and I hope that you're enjoying it as well. If you did, I would like to ask you a favor and either please subscribe or leave me a rating and a review. It definitely helps me get my message out to more people and I would really appreciate it. You can also find me on Instagram at Unleashing Happiness Podcast and I have my website, ceciliahendricks.com.